Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you the stories of people who make the world better locally, globally, and digitally. We're part of Rotary International, 1.2 million people around the world and 36,000 clubs, all of whom feel like service above self is a good way to frame one's life. If you're kind of in that space of valuing service to others and wanting to work with others to make good things happen in your communities near and far, then take a look at Rotary, rotary.org. Or if you're specifically interested in the wild flexibility offered by an online and asynchronous service club, that would be us. Feel free to just go to rotary.cool. Thank you very much. All right, so our program today is with Howard Pearl. Howard is a guy that I got a chance to talk to just some weeks ago, and we very quickly got to where we were swapping stories and laughing about some ideas. And I thought, oh my goodness, I am jazzed that we're going to be able to tell you the story of CARS, Charitable Adult Rides and Services. This is an organization that you have absolutely encountered, even if you don't know it, which is just fine. Howard, let's go ahead and explain to people why they already know what it is you do, and thank you for taking time to speak to the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley.
Well, Rushton, thank you for having me. It's an extraordinary opportunity to talk to your audience. Being an old guy, I'm fairly familiar with your club internationally. I grew up in Canada, and of course, it's impossible to drive through a small town without seeing a sign that says, "Welcome, your local Rotary Club." And I think every Rotarian I've ever met across the globe has been warm, friendly, and inviting. So the opportunity to invest a little time with you folks is genuinely appreciated. Uh, Charitable Adult Rides and Services, colloquially known as CARS, is a 501c3. We are a registered a charitable organization here in the U.S. But we are a business-to-business organization. So chances are you've never heard of us as an organization. But if you've ever watched television, if you've ever listened to a radio spot on NPR, if you've ever heard anybody ask you to donate a vehicle to anything. We're not the guys with that bizarre jingle that can make you crazy. And you all know what I'm talking about. We do the same thing, but we do it for other organizations. So we have just under 11,000 nonprofits under contract, and that would be everybody from the American Red Cross, St. Jude, Shriners, uh, the Sierra Club Foundation, large national nonprofits, international nonprofits, but as well Doctors Without Borders, but small local animal rights groups or animal protection groups, and so on. So really, we run the gamut. We're the largest of our kind that serves as a B2B organization. We run vehicle donations. On a good year, we'll process 150,000 vehicles, which keeps us pretty busy on a daily basis picking these things up. We operate across the U.S. and in some parts of Canada. And we additionally provide, I'll go into more detail here in a bit, but we also provide a myriad of other services. So I'm going to just talk about those. We are, in addition to being 27 years old ourselves, we are really, um, we have a parent organization. We have our own board and we are independent, but we do have a parent organization, which means they are the beneficiary of our surpluses every year. And that's a local nonprofit here in San Diego where we are based. We feed, we house, we advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves. We operate safe parking places for people living in their cars. We have a huge food program and so on. So my parent is a 107-year-old organization. It is a Jewish Family Service here in San Diego. We're the second largest, most innovative JFS in the country, and part of that is because of the capital that we are able to provide them in order to operate with non-assigned capital, and it's quite an exciting operation. So, here we are. Basically, what I've just told you. I don't like to concentrate on slides and so on, but this just gives you a written idea of what it is we do. Uh, Again, we service almost 11,000 organizations. We're about 150 people strong, just a little bit south of that, depending on the day. Um, Here are some of the clients that we serve. Many of them will be recognizable to you if you're NPR listeners or PBS listeners across the country. You've probably heard, but how many of us have not seen an ad on the television? You may donate your car. Um, but in addition to the vehicle donation program, I think it's important to know that our collectively, since our beginning, we have sent $600 million outside of this organization to other organizations across America. Um, and they use this capital. Again, it's unassigned capital. So it's to do the things inside these nonprofits that need doing, but they're grants, usually from government agencies or private industry, that are very specific about what they have to do with the money. This gives them the ability to upgrade their software, to hire an extra person to take some of the stress loads off of those people that are operating. And these days, with all due respect, um, as we know, various government agencies have stopped funding a lot of nonprofit work in the country. So the work that we do, the work that you Rotarians do, is probably far more important than it ever has been at any time in our history. The need is great, pardon me, and so being of service is really critical. One of our big products, of course, in addition to vehicle donations, which is easy, you call, go online, somebody comes, takes away the car, they take it to market, they sell it, and that's terrific. We split our proceeds 80-20. 80% goes back to the nonprofit to whom we're working with. And the best part of that is we're one of the only organizations in the country that does this on a net basis. And what that really means is we share in the expenses. And so it is incumbent on us to process these vehicles and get the absolute most amount of money possible, because we as a net, for example, if we sold a vehicle that we took in, we got $1,500. There were $500 worth of expenses, which would be like towing and auction fees and repairs, which are just blind expenses. They don't come to us. We don't mark any of those up. It's net. That leaves $1,000. $800 goes to the nonprofit. We take 20. So the little amount of money that we can spend, the least amount of money on expenses, the more we all get. And because we share on that side of the equation, you know that there's integrity involved in the process, because we don't want to spend money we don't have to. As a nonprofit, we get the idea, right? Every dollar makes a difference. For $2.11, I can put 2,000 calories on a plate. Every buck makes a difference, and we respect that. So we also have, in addition, real estate donations, as I just talked about, but we also have this effortless fundraising credit card roundup. Now, this is a different kind of roundup than you've seen in the past. We're really trying to impact and engender a commitment to philanthropy to young people. And so we've made it really easy. Any credit card you've got, MasterCard, Discover, Visa, whatever you're using, you're able to register through this Minute to Give program that we have. And as a younger person, maybe you say, look, I just want to give $40 a month. I can't afford to give more than $40, but I do want to have a commitment. And I really can't afford to spend it too much at a time. So I really only want to do it at 35 cents a crack, or 50 cents a time. So we will use our Roundup program to take 50 cents a time. And when you get to that $35 or $45 you've committed, it will stop taking it and send you a record of what you've given and when you've given it, as opposed to sending you an email every time you do something, which makes people crazy. It's just another useless email. So at the end of the month, if you've achieved your $45, it stops. If you did it on the 15th or the 16th, wherever it is you reached your max, it just stops taking it. But if you get to the end of the month and you've only donated $43, it'll take the $2. Now, you can alter this in seconds. Anytime you want, you log on, you can change those parameters. But it does seem to be engaging younger people who find the software easy to use. But the fact that it's so flexible and you can do such small numbers makes a difference. So the value here is to get as many people as possible to use your Roundup program. And we've got, in some cases, we've seen cards that have been put into play where we're seeing 14,000 uses a day throughout their entire constituents. And so those few pennies that you're giving add up to an awful lot of money for any organization. And the fact that we're not saying you have to go to a particular credit card, whatever one you're using, we'll work that out. That makes it easy. We have a consulting group, Build Better Fundraisers, that specialize in showing people how to do better fundraising. But particularly, our consulting is really geared toward nonprofits. I mean, that's really all we do is work. We are a nonprofit that only works with nonprofit. We're owned by a nonprofit. That is our community. That is where we live. But again, we're below the surface. We don't need anybody to know who we are unless you're a nonprofit and you're looking for fundraising mechanisms and the ability to work them better. We differentiate ourselves in many ways. We have 11 full-time people in our marketing department. We provide everything that is required. You can go to our Content Depot and download all kinds of videos and holiday-oriented stuff, and they continue to put new material in there every week. That's their job. And we find that people don't react the same way in the Southwest as they do in the Northeast. So we have creative that is designated for geographic areas in order to make the efficacy of your program that much better. And again, that's good for us. We only make, you know, we only make 10 cents when when you make 80. So that's kind of who we are and where we are in a nutshell. Um, I could go on and on and on, but I'm pretty sure you get the idea. If you're a nonprofit, unless you're allergic to free money, you should call us. The cost of registering in our program is nada, zip, zap, zilch, niente, nothing. We don't make a dime. You don't have to pay a thing. That's that.
Howard, you, my friend, are a hero. I love this story. I love the places we can go with it. But before we jump into the Q&A, what I'd like to do is just introduce the team we've got on the call. So we've got five of our members here. My name's Rushton. I'm in San Jose. Wave when I call your name in Houston, Texas. Rory Olson. In Southern California on Catalina Island is Ernie Rodriguez. Here in the Bay Area, Walnut Creek, California, is our paella master, Shags Chagrin.
Yes.
And then in the Great North is Vancouver, I believe, at the moment, is Nick Lagarde. And so this is a team you've got right here, Howard.
And as a formal Canadian, I appreciate anybody sitting up there in Vancouver.
Totally, right? I mean, there are beautiful cities, and then there are really beautiful cities in
And
Vancouver,
Vancouver is
Canada.
one of them.
Totally, totally. It's also, and by the way, Shags notes in the chat that already ready to register his nonprofit that he does with his cool program for connecting seniors around the world. So let's start with this. One of the many things that I think is so cool about what you do is that as a business savvy nonprofit, so many people have in their heads that nonprofits are just people who put their hands out and ask for money. And while donations are an important piece of how we think about what charity is and things like this, having the ability to be able to engage in business effectively is absolutely something that can work for a nonprofit as well. And I love that you've made that happen through all kinds of things, including the targeted marketing you mentioned. Um, you told me a bit of a story about how you joined the organization, how you became its lead. Could you repeat that story for us, if you are willing?
I'm flattered that you think it makes a difference to anybody. So I'll sort of encapsulate it. I told the longer version to you, but at the end of the day, I had been working in China for a number of years. I came back to the country. Actually, Nick, you'll appreciate I took a bit of a quick turnaround thing in Ottawa. It only took one winter to remind me why I didn't want to be in Ottawa, and that was it, right? I was born in Ottawa, and I remember sitting there one day looking out the window of my office as the snow was falling, and I thought to myself, I parked my car there an hour and a half ago, and there's already 2.5 inches of snow piled up on it. I got to get out of here. So I came back to Southern California, where I had first emigrated in '76, and went to work with a friend of mine who was building a software company. Along the way, I used to do some interim gigs, and a person that that used to find me these wonderful opportunities tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Look, I have this great thing you should see." And I said, "Okay, explain it to me." And she couldn't. It was this. And in those days, they only did car donations, and again, it was still just to the public media community, it was just to the NPR guys. And I said, I for the life of me, I can't understand what you're talking about. And it's small. It's the volume is it's of no interest to me. And then, she did what really smart people do. She said, you owe me a favor or two. I've found you some nice little gigs along the way to break up your boredom. And I need you, if nothing else, just take the interview. If nothing else, it'll buy me 2 weeks so I can find somebody else. So, business is macroeconomics, right? If you want the store to be there in your neighborhood when you need it, from time to time, you got to shop there. So I'm obliged. I go in and I sit down and I take the interview, and this is probably the fun part. Inadvertently and purely by accident, on occasion, I can maybe be a little aloof, a little arrogant, unintentionally. I sit down for the interview. I walk in, and this man I'm talking to is reading my resume, and he's reading my resume, and he's reading my resume. I'm from the Northeast. I show up for an interview. I'm in a suit. I'm in a tie. It's Southern California. He's, in a t-shirt and flip-flops, and I'm thinking, okay, that's fine. And I finally look at him and I say, look, with all due respect, if I'm sitting here, you've probably read my resume at some point. And so the interview started, right? And he said, "Well, you're obviously, you've been successful." I said, "Well, I'm experienced." He said, "Well, you're clearly pretty smart." I said, "I'm well educated." And it went on like this, right? 4 or 5 questions, and he finally said, "Oh, that's the way it's going to be." I said, "Well, how would you like it?" So he said, "Okay, put everything down," and we just started a conversation, right? And he dropped the pretense, and so did I, and we engaged in a conversation that went on for, a couple hours, and it was tremendous. And in my again, forgive my arrogance, but so I said at the end of this interview, I said, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do for you." And he looked at me, and "This is what you're going to do for me?" I was being very presumptuous, but remember, I didn't want this. So I said, "Look, I got a great, I don't know, Nick, you might not even be old enough to know this, but in the old days, we had things called Rolodexes, right?" So I said, "Look, what you really need is you need somebody to go in there and change out your CEO, do the turnaround, and get on with it." So I said, "Look, I've got a guy I could put in there. I'll go in there for 45 to 90 days max. I got to get back to what it is I'm doing, help get it established, bring you a guy who's got nonprofit experience." I know nothing about nonprofit. Like, what am I going to? I have no idea. You guys even have a language that I don't speak. You're going to tell me how inappropriate I am every other word. Well, they still tell me that, but onward we go. I got here and I might as well have run into a brick wall driving one of Elon Musk's, 7,000-pound monsters at 70 miles an hour. I had no idea. Within a week, within 10 days, I knew I was going to stay here for the balance of my career. I knew that this was a place of dignity and opportunity to end a career, really putting it back into the community. I had no idea. First, the staff. I had this image of what nonprofit staff, would be. Wrong. Amazing, incredible, passionate, caring, intelligent people um, that had just not been well managed. And then I had some insight into the mission, and uh, it had a profound effect on, I think, some of my basic beliefs about people, about community, about responsibility. Look, I admit, I came here a hardcore, right-leaning, you know, right-leaning, lower right-hand corner leaning, what's on a balance sheet today kind of character. Now, I've always had a great deal of respect for the people that have worked for me. I've always treated my staff with great respect and great care. They are your product. You know, no man gets there alone. I recognize my only value is to say we're going this way. They're rowing the boat, so um, you gotta love them. But the mission was extraordinary to me. And I went home. My wife said to me one night, "You know, you've been there a little over a week, and you're coming home like happy at night. This is new. Like, what's going on?" So I started to talk about what, and she said, "So why don't you stay? Like, what do we need? Another startup? We need another IPO. We need you screaming and jumping up and down the house. Who's funding what? And like, why don't you stay?" And I said, "Well, I don't like the comp isn't going to be, I don't know." And she said, "Like, we need another dollar in this house. Like, is there anything you're going to do from now until the day we don't need anything that is going to change the quality of our life?" And I'm pretty sure if you ask or if you say you'd like to stay, they'll let you. So I stayed on contract for 3 years before I finally sort of really did the dive. I just passed my 10-year mark here a couple of weeks ago. Best decision other than marrying the wife that I have. Um, Best decision ever done in my life. Never been happier, never been more fulfilled, never made a bigger, better contribution to a wider group of human beings. And I say this to my board every time we meet. Thank you for the opportunity. It is a privilege to do this work.
Wow, so cool. I have heard something similar said by people who talk about their decision to join Rotary. So let's talk about
That
the
sounds like a
mechanics of some
very
of your work.
recruiting oriented spiel here.
There is a side of me that has kind of the sales feature, but I think that's mostly trying to sell teenagers on the idea that they should do the work that I'm assigning them. Same thing, same thing. So the mechanics of the work of cars, right? I've got loads of question here, but let's talk about minute to give. I suppose that steps away from the cars a bit, but you're looking at the opportunity to get young people, involved in philanthropy, to do so in a way that works well for them. Could you first speak a little bit about the mechanics of how this works? So if someone's going to the site and saying, "Hey, well, here's my credit card," now, how does that work, and how is it that that this doesn't kind of run into issues with the credit card companies and along those lines?
Okay, this is where you see the sort of smart ass part of me. I want you to tell me how an automatic transmission shifts from first to seventh gear. Can you tell me that?
It's done by pixies and magic, as far as I know.
Okay, so the Roundup program works by pixies and magic. All right. I can't honestly tell you that synchros. I think you're absolutely correct, Shags. But that's another story. Um, the mechanics are we have an agreement in place. We have a contractor who does this, who's been assigned to build this for us and deal with it and so on. And they're an organization that processes credit cards and that processes transactions and so on. And they have made arrangements with all of the major credit card brands, but with the brands like with Visa, not the Royal Bank Visa, but Visa, who has created systemically a way to attach a directive that on each transaction, this is taken and goes there, and that's accounted for. But it's accounted for at the credit card issuer, not the credit card representative. So if you've got a Bank of America or an RBC card and you use it, where it's actually processed is where the money's picked off and sent to the nonprofit. And then, of course, it's your card, so you get the statement. I mean, I don't understand. I'm sure it's just a piece of software here and there, but
What works works.
yeah,
So
we don't do the administration on that product.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, what you have done as an organization, and I'm curious what the time frame here is with this. You talked about $600 million in funding to the nonprofits that
Yeah,
have signed up with cars.
yeah.
Is that over the life of the organization, the 10 years since you've been there? And where is the bulk of that? Did that really take off at a certain point? Maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago?
Oh man, you are giving like an opportunity to really crow here. Shags and I would call this COVID. Anyway, so um, well, the organization was fairly small when I got here. We just dealt with public media. Um, they did return a lot of money, but I would say subsequent to my arrival, we've probably distributed, if not 500 million, then close to it over the 10 years. So we did sort of hit a hockey stick because when I came in, I said, like any other business guy, look, there's nothing non-business about nonprofit. And if you think your nonprofit is not a business, you're nuts. The problem is you just don't see it that way. And if you don't operate it as a business, if you don't get off the gut and onto the gauge and start using your data to manage your business, you're not doing well. You're doing okay, but you could be doing really well. And there's a difference between good and great. And running your business like a business is what makes the difference between I'm making a living and I'm doing really, really well. And it's not only legitimate to do well while you're doing good, it's not only appropriate to do well while you're doing good, it's a darn near necessity in order to ensure that the good you're doing will continue and sustain. If the people who are pushing it don't do well, why would they? I mean, it's just to me, it just anyway. So we went from having 450 some odd NPR stations across the country. We didn't even have all of those. We had less than that. We had about 400. And I said, we got to diversify our revenue stream here. We can't count on just this small group of people we need to add. So we went out and we decided, how do we start, how do we start mining the categories? So we got some animal right groups, and we got some some nature groups, and we got some sustainability groups, and then we bolstered the product. I said, okay, if I come out of industry, come out of big business, what are the things I want as a chief executive or a chief financial officer in order to partner with anybody, whether they're making nuts and bolts for me, providing consulting services, or whatever. And as I learned about the category, um, it's more important for nonprofits to be able to, well, it's important for every business to be able to account, but to visibly account. So what's the thing that's missing for most nonprofits? Easy access to visibility, i.e., genuine transparency. So the first change we made here is I developed software, not personally, but caused to be created, software that makes us transparent. So as a CEO or a CFO or a leader, whatever you want to call your executive director of your agency, we have a product called NAV. In your NAV component, you see everything I see as the chief executive of cars. You see 24 hours a day, 7 days a week live. Where's my inventory? Who donated this inventory? Where is the vehicle now? Has it been auctioned? If it was auctioned, what day was it auctioned? How much money did we get? When am I getting the money? So first thing we did was we built a system for ultimate transparency. That's why we say we're built on trust. You see what I see. That's one. Two, we don't own the money. We shouldn't be arbitraging. We now send our money out every 5 days. You get money. It's your money, should be in your bank, not my bank. Okay. I make profit off the business I do, not leveraging. I already leverage your asset, right? I leverage your name. People donate to Red Cross. People donate to Rotary. They don't donate to me. I'm just a facilitator. I'll make my money by doing the work we do. That was clearly established. That's who we are, what we are, why we are. Next, we started to add, a broader range of service. And then I said, we're adding all these people, but they're not doing great volume. Stop. So we stopped selling. We stopped adding nonprofits until we could develop a proper marketing department, go out to the people we had, and we made them more successful. Then, and only then, could I go to somebody like a Red Cross or like a St. Jude or whomever and say, I have a product for you that will really help. I've got transparency. I've got great references. We are the most efficient. We share the most amount of money. We're on the same side of the equation as you are, so we're of incentive to be spendthrift, if you will. Because we're a nonprofit and because we do what we do, we feed people. We understand like people don't really get it, right? We're 100+ million bucks, across the top. You combine the agency with what it is, we're like 200 million, in revenue. And here we are talking about like $2 makes a difference. When you can put a couple of thousand calories on a plate for $2, it matters. It's not 2,000 calories and it's not $2. It's the sustenance a human being needs for 24 hours. When you reduce it down to that, and I don't care how big you get, if you can't reduce what you do down to the granular level to understand why you're doing what you're doing and who you're doing, I don't care what industry you're in. And I've been in a couple, the same philosophical underpinnings and practical underpinnings create successful environments.
Well, I'm going to be contacting area universities to see who might award credit for the master class in business administration that we're getting as a part of this one. I love this. Nick has a question. Nick, go
Yeah.
ahead and unmute and jump in.
Yeah. So
And
so
yes, that
lovely.
is the Maple Leafs back there, and I don't want to hear anything about it.
I was going to stay very, very far away from that. Thank you for talking to us, and you've answered actually a lot of the questions. I start with questions and you've answered them. So I'll ask kind of just a broader thing, which is you made a point of investing in the technology to help you be transparent. Have you? Are there other trends in the technology? I actually just got back from the Rotary convention. They talked a bunch about AI and stuff. Are you seeing things that are affecting or that are going to be affecting your way of doing things anytime soon?
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was this little book here.
Okay. Nonprofit A.
Do a screenshot,
Yep.
order the book, read it, enjoy it. It's AI is impacting what we do as it is impacting any other business. Um, and so if you are not learning how to not just utilize, but how to understand AI, such as it is today, and it won't look anything like in 10 days the way it looks today, um, then you're going to be left behind and you'll be relegated to the sort of, lower echelons and you just will never break through. Um, I, sorry, I should have thought about having this prepared, but I have this. Any of you know what Samudra is? Samudra, ever? Yes, no, I don't see any faces going up and down. Okay. One of my colleagues in this sort of brain trust thing I'm a part of, prepared for us, about 8 months ago, AI as a partner for personal development. So I have sent this around to all of my staff and people we work with. And it you know, it shows us how to interact. Like talking to your AI is really an art. So I sent this around to like my department heads, right? Team enhancement prompts. So I believe that we should never ask AI for an answer. I think we should always ask AI for the question that will lead us to the answer, right? You have to really interact with this thing like you're talking to, I don't know, psychic, you're talking to the dead, I don't know, whatever. So like team blind spot identification. So here's the prompt, right? Facilitate a process to identify potential blind spots in our team's thinking about this project. Ask probing questions one at a time to surface unconscious assumptions or overlooked perspectives. Generally, only one idea at a time, suggestion or question at a time would help. And this is the conversation that you're having with your AI. So Nick, I think um, that building a list of this for the people you work with to show them how to um, team energy, cross-functional collaboration, help us strengthen collaboration between different functions within our team because, for two reasons, right? We all know that uh, third-party reference has far greater impact. I mean, for whatever reason, right? My brother's a banker and a successful one. I wouldn't believe a thing the guy had to say. I got to go to my own banker who hasn't got a clue, who misguides me terribly because of his ignorance, not intentionally. But my brother, what does he know? He's my brother. He didn't know anything, right? So so if we get these third-party prompts to deal with AI, here's what I've discovered. Just like Ernie over there, I looked at AI, a year ago and said, "Oh, thank God I'm old. I'm not gonna have to deal with this. I'm gonna get by, and I won't have to. I'm not gonna have to learn how to program the VCR." And we escaped that, Ernie. We did. We made it by that part. But now they've given us more green LEDs to deal with. And the thing is, I have discovered that AI is not only something that we don't need to be afraid of, it is something we can embrace. It is an easy and friendly tool. I'm not going to tell you which one I use. It doesn't matter because you need to choose your own because it's like a relationship. Don't get hung up on the personal emotionship. You're not building a relationship with this thing. It's a machine, right? You're trying to find ways for it to help. And the other thing is this, like everything I hear from other human beings, that which fits, okay. That which doesn't fit, I don't need to accept. Just because it came from AI doesn't mean it is. So most of us are experienced in reading people. If we're in business, we deal with people all the time. We know horse pucky, when we see it. And you really have to check everything it tells you because I once asked it. I was introducing Janet Kaplan, the author of The Gratitude Diaries, a wonderful woman. I've been privileged to know her for many years. Got a couple of new books out lately, but so I said, here are the things I know about Janice Kaplan. Do some research and give me a thing, right? So I wrote out this wonderful thing, and I'm reading it, and it's talking about this wonderful book that she did, and blah 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 blah. And then I'm good to the bottom. And I think to myself, wait a second, Janice has 12 books she's published. I don't ever remember seeing this one. So I said, go back and check whether or not Janice Kaplan actually wrote this book. Oh no, this wasn't written by Janice Kaplan. Yeah, can you imagine standing up there in front of a room, 260 people all waiting for Janice Kaplan to do her keynote, and you introduce the wrong book? I mean, come on. So I think, Nick, to answer your question, you need to find a way to get comfortable with, even if it's surrounding yourself with, people, younger people or people that are interested, to humanize and debunk all the nonsense about AI. It's going to be a part of our lives the same way automatic transmissions were. They power windows. We whether we wanted them or not, you can't buy a car where you roll down a window anymore. It's a part of our lives. Embrace it.
Well, as a guy who trains teachers how to help their students use generative AI to become better students, I'm singing that hymn for sure. I'm going to wind things down and then I'll hand it back to you, Howard, for the last word. But first, everybody who has joined us for this recording, whether it's the video or the podcast, thank you. You're giving us your time, and we hope that in return, you've gotten some really good ideas, a level of inspiration about something that you might be able to do that you hadn't imagined, a half hour ago, this kind of thing. We want you to be able to mine the gold that we get in these conversations all the time. And at our site, just go to rotary.cool and look in the upper right at meetings. That's our meetings archive. And you can find your way to all sorts of wonderful, wonderful stories from people all over the world who treasure the opportunity to help others. We think that's a good way to spend one's life. As we always like to do, we hand it back to our speaker for the final word. Howard, what would you like people to have clearly in mind as they finish the video or the podcast?
Be better listeners. Find a way to be a better listener. Remember that people do things for their reasons, not for yours. Take the time to listen to what they're saying, understand what they're saying. You'll be more productive. They'll be more productive. Your relationship will be more harmonious. People do things for their reasons, not for yours. Align yourselves with people that believe what you believe. You'll be more productive. And speaking of being more productive, Rushton, you and I are going to talk. I'm going to use you in a project. I've got people I need you to talk to.
And I look forward to it. And I look forward to everybody else joining us next week for our next program. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will see you soon.